This is Joyce Tice. We're at the Museum of Us in Mansfield, Pennsylvania. It's the 16th of March, 2019. And we're talking to Carol Sanford and Nan Messenger, who grew up in Mansfield. They're here on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the Mansfield High School State Basketball Championship. They were both cheerleaders. They have lots of dandy memories about Mansfield. They love Mansfield and want to talk about Mansfield and their families and the town. So you two decide who talks first.
Go ahead.
You were quick to say that.
Yes, I was.
I'm Nan Messinger, and my parents were Robert and Mary Lee Messinger. My mother's family was the Judge and Peterson families, and they lived in Mansfield for at least, they've been there for 100 years, I would say. And my mom and dad only moved away in 2003 when they moved to Lewisburg. My grandfather, Herbert Peterson, was born in Arnott, son of a coal miner. They had very little, and his father died very young. His mother was Swedish, and I still have a Swedish Bible with an inscription to him from 1903 or some year like that. My mother's parents were Eleanor and Herbert Peterson, and they owned the T.W. Judge Company that was founded by my mother's grandparents, Tom Wade Judge. So this family has been here for many years, and we lived in the house that Bob Strohecker now occupies at 64 Prospect Street. But before that, Carol and I lived across from each other on Elmira Street. So that's how I ended up here in Mansfield, and your story is a little different.
My dad was Robert Sanford, who was the doctor in town, along with Dr. Moore. My dad was on his way to New England when he was trying to decide where to set up a practice, and he found this little town of Mansfield. And he decided to stay here, and he worked out of the Blossburg and the Wellsboro hospitals and happened to meet my mother, who was Ann Alston, who was born and raised in Williamsport. She was a medical technologist at the Wellsboro Hospital, and they met there and got married 6 months later.
Wow,
and,
that was a fast courtship.
Yeah, and they stayed here for a long time and
had 5 kids.
Had five.
Wow.
5 kids, and we have all moved away from Mansfield, but are very, very fond of this area.
Well, you're not very far away. You're just up in Danby?
In Ithaca.
Uh-huh.
No, I live in Ithaca, New York, which is an hour from here.
Right.
Which is great.
Yeah, sure. You can come anytime you want.
I do. I come down every once in a while, and if I'm on my way somewhere, sometimes I just
go past the house.
I just come through town, and I don't take the bypass. I'll come through town just to see it.
Yeah, I do that at a house that I used to own. I just always swing up over the hill to see if my house is okay.
Just before I came here this morning, I was on Prospect Street looking around.
Yes.
I always notice every little difference. I went past Ruth Marsh's house to go up the hill, and a lot of people still tell me that they remember sledding at our back hill. And there was actually an old sign that I wish you had here in the museum that was something the town provided. It was a big painted sign, and it said road closed for coasting.
Okay.
And that meant sledding.
Yeah.
So we would all go up there, and my mother told me later, years later, that she was always nervous about liability because she was afraid that all these neighbor kids who came sledding might have a little run-in with a tree or something.
Sure. Well, a lot of people talk about that. The video that's running now with Rich Miller, he talks about coasting down St. James. So, now you probably went to elementary school together.
Yes.
We did everything together.
Well, tell us a little bit about your elementary school.
Yeah. And we each had a sister of the same age. My sister is Lee.
And mine is Beth. And the 4 of us were like sisters, even though we lived across the street from each other. We spent a lot of time together. And
elementary school was up the hill.
Up the hill in the college Rattan Center, is that what it's called?
Now it is. What was the campus elementary school?
Yeah, we called it the elementary school.
Just
and we walked up sort of the back way, I think we did.
We had a couple of different ways that we could get up there. It depends, I think, on how late we were.
And one of our stories was we would decide that maybe we needed to have an afternoon off, that we were sick. So we always came home for lunch. Yeah. That was different than they do today. We always came home for lunch. Our mothers were home. Yeah. And we would say, oh, Mom, I have a stomach ache. I can't go back this afternoon. And my mom would call her mom and she'd say, does Carol have a stomach ache too? And they figured out that we were up to no good and they wouldn't let us stay home.
It was kind of hard for me to fake an illness.
Right.
Because it was always, well, then maybe we need to take you down to your dad's office. It's like, oh, no. No, I'm feeling kind of better. I can go back to school.
My grandmother's, how is this? My grandmother's aunt, Rose Judge, lived in the apartment above Dr. Sanford's office.
Okay.
And you went up this creepy little set of stairs to go up
Papa
there.
V's. Papa V's
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Yeah, people here now would know that building as Papa V's.
Well, she lived above that, and she was a spinster lady who may have lived well into her 90s, originally born in England, and she would have been my great-grandfather's sister, Rose Judge. But she lived above Dr. Sanford's office.
I lived up there once, and was creepy.
It was creepy.
It was
my sister and I always thought it was a little creepy to go visit her. She wore wigs.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Well, she had her pride.
She did.
So, what do you want to talk about next? You wanted to talk about your families and...
well, growing up in our neighborhood.
Right.
I've listened to your interview of David
Nan
and Nan Garrison.
Yeah.
And Nan mentions Carol and me, and she mentions Linda Penno, and the four of us did a lot of fun, had a lot of fun just playing in the neighborhood. Different than the way kids are now with a lot of structured time. We just went outdoors and rode our bikes, and we went into town and bought 5-cent ice cream cones from Percy Cole's drugstore.
Sure.
We went to the pool every day downtown, and at night we played games in Carol's backyard, which was a big, deep backyard. Red light, green light, Red Rover, and kick the can or something like that.
Yeah, and kickball, and there were baseball games there. The guys would come and play football in the backyard because we had an extended backyard that seemed to be bigger than everyone else's.
Endless.
And it was a really good place for us all to gather and play. And it was nice because you just we could just go out, do what we wanted to do, and not really worry about anything.
Your parents knew you were safe.
Yep, right.
Was no traffic in the back lawn.
And maybe somebody's parent at 9 o'clock would whistle, and that meant we were supposed to come home.
We had a bell.
You had a bell.
We had a bell on the back door,
and
we had there were 5 of us, and each one of us had a ring.
Oh, like the old telephone systems.
If it was one ring, my sister had to go home because she was the oldest. It was 2, it was mine. 3 was my brother Wayne. 4 was my brother Gator, Bill, and 5 was my brother Gator. And if she just continuously
that meant
everybody had to come home.
Ollie and free.
Exactly.
We had so much fun growing up, and we continue to tell people that we meet along the way. I live outside of Philadelphia, and they say, where are you from? And I say, a small town in upstate Pennsylvania, and then I go on from there, and we always say what a wonderful growing up experience we had here with just plain fun. School was very important, but we also enjoyed the movie theater, the skating rink, a little bit of the bowling alley, the dairy treat. My dad would pile all the neighbor kids into the station wagon some summer night and take us down to get ice cream. And, that was a big treat for us.
It was a big, we grew up in a big family. Yeah. Someone said it takes a village to raise a child, and that's where we lived.
We had Linda Schwab's family. They lived on the corner. We had Terry Joe Goodall, who lived near us, the Sanfords, the Messingers. My godmother was Carol's mother, Anne Sanford, and my other godmother was Marie McConnell, who lived right next door to me. And I told her great-granddaughter yesterday, her granddaughter, who works at First Citizens, I told her that Marie, for me, was the original working woman. Marie lived to be 103 years old, and every day she walked to her job at the REA, the electric company. And before I understood the value of women working, I said, Marie, you've always had a job. And my mom supported my dad's store, but she didn't have a full job. And I was so impressed that Marie had this working life, and I called her the original working woman.
Yeah.
Now, you're here to commemorate this 50th anniversary, and that's a huge event in Mansfield. I was not here at the time. I was just moving into my first ever house in Appalachian, so I missed it, but it remains legendary in Mansfield. And I've just been learning about it as we've been preparing for this, and the thing that I get emotional about is this 40-mile parade, where I do. I mean, I just choke up when I.
And you have my pictures now.
Yeah,
from
they're
the
right
parade.
over there on there in the poster.
The Bob Messinger pictures.
All of the, and it has his name on it.
Oh,
all of these little towns that were rivals came out with their bands and their fire trucks and their people to welcome you. They're going to tell us about that, because I think that is so special.
well, we were here in Mansfield as the cheerleaders, so we had come home the night before and probably didn't sleep very much because we were really excited.
Oh, yeah.
So the guys all stayed overnight at a motel or whatever down in Harrisburg. So they're the ones who experienced the 40-mile ride with the people coming out of their houses and the bands. And they did talk about that yesterday. We were at the high school.
Right. I hope they will again, because I really want that story.
They will. And we didn't realize that it was as many people as what Steve was commenting about yesterday.
Steve McCloskey.
Yeah. He was describing it in every step of the way, and we don't have that experience.
Sometimes when you're right in the middle of something
you
and you're as young as we were, you don't really take the time to really soak in everything that's going on. So I was just shocked when he was saying there were like 4,000 people here.
That's what he said.
Really? I knew there were a lot, but
I know.
But it was interesting because we got it. When did we get into the cars?
Maybe at the high school, or no, south of town probably.
South of town by
maybe the park or something.
Bowling alley, maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Probably the bowling alley.
Yeah, where we assembled. Everyone had a convertible, and we cheerleaders, each one of us sat with one other player. And I was dating Rick Hill at the time, so I sat with him on the car, and Carol was with Terry Stickler. And Terry is a wonderful guy with so much personality, and we're sorry he's no longer with us.
Right,
He's a fabulous guy, and he has the greatest smile and a big wave in the picture of the two of you. And so we really, really had such a fun time with that whole experience, and it was probably starting in 1968 when Reg Lang and Bob Schonbacher and those guys had a really good team, and Tom was on that team, Tom McMillan. Then it was our junior year and others, the seniors, that was the year of the championship, 1969.
Yep.
And we have endless memories of all year long the kind of attention that our school received, the pep rallies, the send-offs for the big games, the bus rides, the cheers that we created, the cheerleading competitions that we were in, and we won. We were on a TV show in Binghamton because our cheerleading squad won some competition.
No, I didn't know that. You see, I've been looking.
It's called the Ralph Carroll Show.
I remember Ralph Carroll.
Yeah.
He was a dry old guy.
Well, we weren't dry that day.
We were also young and enthusiastic, so there was no dryness coming out of it.
Right.
We're not quite sure what year that was, but we had a really good time doing that. We were on national television on a Sunday night, CBS Evening News, because of the whole Tom McMillan story. Yeah. The Sports Illustrated thing was February of 1970. All of us had the photographs taken. You know, only a few were used in the publication. But my dad displayed all the large 8 by 9 by 12 photos that Sports Illustrated shared with us that were not used, and Dad put them in the window of T.W. Judge Company for everyone to see.
I think we have some of them because we up front we have 4 albums this thick of Ted Bassonson's stuff.
Right.
And it's all about Tom going right through the Olympics.
Yeah. We had a lot of those clippings with us at the high school yesterday where we were fortunate to talk to the students, and we had a really good time. There were maybe 10 of us who got together. And our friend Mike Neff was always the announcer, the broadcaster, and you know, from high school days on, he broadcasted the play-by-play. And we were talking about how you had to go to the top of the hill toward Wellsboro if you were home to get the reception on WNBT.
Yep. And he was talking to the students about the fact that when we wanted to see the results of the other games, we had to go to the library to get the Elmira Star Gazette. That's the only way we had for
to get information.
There was no internet, there were no cell phones, there were no computers, none of that.
Yeah.
We had to rely on these newspapers.
Yeah.
And she has newspapers, I have them, and
Yes,
they're yellow and frail now, but
they're priceless to us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, and I think I have the first signed copy of Tom McMillan's Sports Illustrated article, because my dad would receive his weekly subscription at the post office downtown, which was in town at the time,
Right.
in a box. So the morning we knew it was coming out, he and I drove to the post office before 8 o'clock, as he would normally get his mail, and then I would go to school. And we opened the box, and there it was. And I went to my homeroom that morning, and Tom sat right behind me. I turned around, I said, "Will you sign this?" And in his usual blue flare pen, he signed my
Excellent.
copy, and I have it.
That is, well, this was such a special time for all of you. And like you said, you were so young. I mean,
I was 16.
It's your only...
And I was 17.
You were
it's
barely
your
17.
Barely.
only exposure to a basketball season and your state champions. Well, you didn't know how unusual that was. So what?
We didn't know, but it was building here. We had a really good program, even back when Tom's brother Jay was a basketball player. It was important here, and to this day, I'm a big basketball fan. I live near Villanova, and I go to all the Villanova basketball games, and I have friends down where I live who say, "How do you know so much about basketball?" And they think it's surprising as a woman that I care. And I tell them it was a special thing here.
And I watched basketball, and my husband was a basketball player.
Sure.
So, I mean, between growing up in the basketball world and now being married into the basketball
which
world,
is amazing.
We said we watch games all the time, and I start talking about the plays they're doing and things like that, and he just turns around and looks at me and goes, "You've learned something."
You know
And
this?
I'm like, "Yeah,
Sure.
yeah."
We
So I love basketball too. So
We
it's
have
great.
the 1962 trophies here too, with Jack Baines and Jay McMillan and so on. Yeah.
Yesterday we talked about some of the schools that we played outside of the county.
Okay.
We played in a tournament 2 years in a row called the Johnstown Christmas Memorial Tournament in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. That had, we didn't know about it, but it had a big basketball reputation. And we went and played against a school from New York City called Power Memorial High School, which had as its most famous star Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Right, exactly.
And then in the year we played them, it had
Len Elmore
and Chap Trimble, who then went on to play at Maryland with Tom.
Wow.
And Len Elmore is a very famous broadcaster now for March Madness games and other games on ESPN. And we met him. Yeah. And we hung out with them a little bit one night.
One of the games.
We had never met big city boys, and they had never met small town people, and they told us that.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful to have the chance to talk to you, and we're going to wind it up now, so if there are any last words you'd like to share with our friends.
I have something. When my father died 11 years ago, 2008, and of course he came originally from Kingston, New York, and then met my mother in Ithaca, where Carol lives, while he was at Ithaca College. When he died, the service we had was here at St. James Episcopal Church, our lifelong family church. That and the bank in town and the Judge Company are important to me. But at his service, I said, I have a message to tell people. And my message was, don't ever underestimate the special things a small town has to offer.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I went far away, and my sister lives farther away, and we still feel that way today. And I looked out at people in the congregation, and everyone's nodding that they understood what we were
doing. Because my whole family has moved away, and when we gather as a family, we talk about growing up here. So it's the foundation that we have, that we have built on, and it couldn't be any better.
Yeah, it's a great place to launch your life from.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We're proud of it.
Thank you.